Mayday, mayday, aircraft. 782, we have smoke in the cabin.
We're going to 782 to contact, pilot maintain.
Good evening and welcome to the July 2025 special transmission of Galactic Terrors, the online reading series that scours the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, and all sorts of literary oddities from the most imaginative authors writing in a variety of fascinating genres. I am James Chambers, and with me is co-host Carol Gyzander.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Jim. Welcome back. We had a little bit of a break here, so it's good to be online and see some folks and talk to some peoples.
It seems like we had an extended break since our last episode. I think we were on in May and took a little bit of a hiatus for June to make sure we didn't completely lose our sanity while attending and working on StokerCon.
Yes, indeed, because our show is usually on the second Thursday, and that was right when StokerCon was happening up in Stamford, Connecticut this year. So this is our first time back. It's kind of exciting. So,
well, thank you all for joining us. We hope everyone is having a great summer and staying cool. And if you're watching us on YouTube in particular, please click subscribe and like and subscribe. As our good friend of Galactic Terrors, Nicholas Dyack, likes to say, mash those like and subscribe buttons. The more you mash, the faster your internet will run. And so it's all good for everyone involved.
That's always an excellent thing. You know, you can never improve that too much. Yeah, it's fun.
And we are generally on every second Thursday of the month. This month is a little bit of an anomaly, but, you know, hey, we're horror writers. We're dealing with anomalies all the time.
Mm-hmm. You know, anomalous this, anomalous that, anomalous endings, anomalous commas. Yes. So who's to say?
And
so thanks everybody for tuning in. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, we have an awesome newsletter, which we'll put the link in the chat later. So if you want to keep up on future broadcasts, you can sign up for that and we don't spam you.
That's true. We send one, maybe two emails a month just to fill you in on who's coming up and give you a reminder whenever possible of the day of the show, just to sort of make the chats easier for you to find, the links easier to find.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. So that's cool. Yeah. So I had an awful lot of fun up at StokerCon, Jim, and thank you to you and Brian Chambers and all the people from the Connecticut / now New England chapter who helped pull everything together. It was very cool, and we had a very good showing. Since that's very close to our New York chapter here of horror writers, we had a very good showing from our chapter, didn't we?
We did. We had about 25 of our New York members and associates hanging out at StokerCon, and I think there's a bunch that were there we did not manage to capture in this impressive photographic collage.
Yes, it's an array of folks. Yes, with just a few floating heads on there as well. Yeah,
we did Photoshop a few people in after the fact.
Yeah, it's really hard to get everybody together in one spot at one time, isn't it? But people were nice enough to come by and get their picture taken later, and so that was a little bit fun to put together. And yeah, it's great to see everybody because, you know, our New York chapter is New York City area as well as up in the northern part of New York State and central New York, and a lot of folks from New Jersey as well. So we can't always see each other in person, but that's one of the advantages of a convention or a gathering or something, which is cool.
Yes.
Yeah. And the next one is going to be Pittsburgh.
Yes, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, June 4th to the 7th in 2026. So check out stokercon.com for details and info. And I think our early bird registration is in effect through the end of September. So there's always a good amount of time to get a better deal on registration. If you think you might want to come, and we hope we'll see a whole bunch of people there.
Yeah, I hope so. It's out of all the ones I attend, it's my favorite convention. I have to be honest. So
it's a good one, yeah. And this year, despite some, I guess, mishaps or I don't know I'm blanking out on the word I want, but some hurdles at the hotel. We had a fantastic convention, and for those who weren't there, there's a publisher who has started an anthology of liminal hotel horror stories inspired by the experiences and oddities at the Stanford Hilton Hotel where we had our convention.
yeah.
So look for that. I can't remember the title of the book, but it's coming from To Be Read Books, which is a great name for a publisher. To Be Read. or Death by TBR. Maybe it's Death. I should have written this down, but I'm thinking of it off the cuff. And John Langan distracted me before we started by making Robert OTTONE laugh. And so now I'm just completely beside myself.
So the rest of the evening should go extremely well. Yes. That'll be fun.
Well, I do have one fun thing I want to share. I don't know if Nicholas Dyack or Michelle Brittany are with us tonight, but a few months back, Nicholas sent me this awesome postcard, Madrid.
Yeah.
And it's part of a project he's doing where he's just sending people a postcard a day. And I'm assuming he worked through a pretty lengthy list, but just a couple of weeks ago or days ago, I got this really awesome postcard of Tintin.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
With
Nicholas.
Cutouts. Are those cutouts on it?
They're not cutouts. That's my green screen.
Oh, it's your green screen helping. Okay.
Moving. Those are rocks. Anything cut out is green rock.
Okay.
So just fill that in with your imagination. But I want to thank Nicholas for sending those. It's fun to get a postcard, and especially to get these odd, unexpected ones like Tintin.
Yeah, that's neat.
It's just a lot of fun. So I'll have to send Nicholas a note and thank him directly for it. But I figured I'd let the rest of the Galactic Terrors people know what Nicholas is up to, because it's a cool project, and because you should also check out Nicholas and Michelle's podcast, the HP Lovecast, which is a terrific series that they do, covers all sorts of things, horror and horror related.
And they do some deep dives into individual works, and it's awesome. I love it as well. Yeah. So, and how wonderful to get a postcard, because I lament when I go and open the mailbox, I know it's nothing but bills and junk mail. So, how nice to get a real postcard from a person anymore. Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah.
And I just realized we completely forgot to tell our audience who's joining us to read tonight.
It's a secret. Don't tell. It's a mystery. No, it's a horror show. You're absolutely right, Jim. It's, we must have forgotten what we're doing in this amount of time. But tonight we have tonight's readers, Robert P. OTTONE, John Collins, and JOHN LANGAN are joining us tonight. So that's a very exciting lineup. I'm very thrilled to have all of them on the show.
Yes, and it's exciting too, because they each have new books out either this month or coming in just the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be able to talk to them about those projects, and I think hear some readings from them too.
Yeah. Well, why don't we go ahead and do that?
Awesome. All right, we'll just go ahead and jump in, and please go ahead and put questions for our authors in the chat as we go, and we'll get things rolling. Yeah,
terrific. Well, we've asked Rob OTTONE to start us off, because everybody on this show is fun and a good reader, but Rob is extra fun. So here we go. Robert P. OTTONE is the two-time Bram Stoker award-winning author of The Triangle and There's Something Sinister in Center Field. He's also the best-selling author of Curse of the Cobman, The Sleepy Hollow Gang, The Vile Thing We Created, and Nocturnal Creatures. His short fiction has been collected in Tear Me Open, Fears Unwrapped, as well as Her Infernal Name and Other Nightmares. He holds 2 master's degrees in education, as well as an MFA in children's literature. A bagel-loving fabulist of spooky absurdity, OTTONE enjoys cigars, cocktails, and time with his wife. And here's Rob to share something from his new book.
Oh, hello.
Rob, I'm just going to mention that we're not hearing you suddenly right now. Did you accidentally mute by any chance?
Yes, I muted myself because
Okay.
I'm trying to
darn
be
it.
professional, and this is what happens.
You're just wanting to make sure we were paying attention, so you got us to all focus in. Thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
The worst. So I'm going to be reading to you from my new collection, Tear Me Open, Fears Unwrapped, which is out from Winding Road Stories. And I am honored to be here with the two icons, JOHN LANGAN and John Collins. So I'm going to read two stories. They're both short. This first one is called Inside Out. Impossible wetness and unbearable pain. A soaked bedspread. A mixture of blood, sweat, and other bodily seepage. I cannot blink. My teeth chatter. My lips have vanished. When I try to rise, the sheet sticks to me, and as I peel it back, I notice a sharp jab as sinew separates from meat, then meat from bone. Unable to move further, I spill to the floor, the muscles in my legs exposed and drooping under the strain. I accept this. I feel the pain begin to overwhelm and drown out any rational thought. If I could close my eyes, I would. I reach into my chest and part the lung, shifting the muscle and threads of flesh the best I can. Fingers trembling, I grip my heart and squeeze as tight as I can. My body seizes, and the world blurs to black. So that was the first story I'm going to read for you. Now I'm going to read to you another little short piece. This one is called A Letter to the Ghost in My Basement. As a new homeowner, this one strikes hard. Dear thing that goes bump in the night, hello from the other side, that is to say, the side of the living. I understand that the realtor who sold me this house, a bubbly, all too excited gentleman in a blue suit that really was too bright for any normal human to wear, didn't exactly tell me the entire truth while going into his spiel about the beams, the foundation, the expert molding, etc. But still, what's your deal? Yes, he talked about how beautiful the house is/was, how the recent renovations and vinyl siding would last for about 20 or 30 years, and that the kitchen cabinets were all new and the bathrooms recently redone. But when it came to the basement, he simply stated that it wasn't finished and that it was the perfect workspace for a young guy like me, and that I could turn the space into a craft beer laboratory. I didn't really know what that meant. I never made anything in my life other than a bowl of cereal, toast, or a half-burned bowl of ramen. Don't ask about that. I guess he assumed by my flannel shirt that and the fact that I had a beard, that I was some kind of woodworker or perhaps a guy who only drinks obscure IPAs. IPAs taste like salt water. I didn't correct him and instead marveled that a house with 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and had only an asking price of $280,000 in this area of Long Island. That was an impossibility in itself, so I shrugged off the assumption of manliness made by my realtor and jumped at the chance to own the place, which was nestled among houses that would easily go for 2 to 3 times as much, if not more. My own slice of the overpriced Long Island American dream. I know. If it's too good to be true, then it probably is. I expected the oil furnace to explode a week after moving in, or maybe there were drafts from the windows upstairs that would need replacement. Maybe the plumbing was about to go. These would be costly fixes, sure, but in the end, none of these things happened. The house was damn near perfect, except for that basement. Walking past the door in the hallway resulted in a feeling of chills up my spine. What a cliche you are. Here's the tea. You can't even do something nice like make the house smell like coconut or cookies or potpourri. You have to make the air around the door cold? Lame. So lame. Ghost in my basement. Then you started banging around, and there's the weird creaking from the, workspace down there. And soon it became louder, and the sounds grew angry and inhuman. You sound inhuman, bro. I don't know what you are, to be totally honest, since you scared away the psychic I hired to figure out what your deal is. But my man, you've got to chill. Maybe I'm offending you by assuming your gender, and for that I'm truly sorry. You may be a vengeful female ghost, maybe a crabby trans ghost. I don't know. I think women are typically more creative than men, so throwing things around a basement definitely has a more masculine quality. So I'm going to keep calling you dude. Do you even know what that word means? How old are you anyway? I don't even store anything down there with you, yet somehow you find things to throw around, like that phonograph, one of those old-timey record player things I've only ever seen in movies about haunted houses. I didn't bring that here. Where are you finding these things? Do you have a secret space? Maybe beneath the stairs where you're hiding all this stuff? I couldn't get that door open when I was down there, so maybe that's where you live? I don't know. That's weird, man. You can have the whole space down there. I don't really mind. What's with all the old medical equipment, too? Stuff that's ancient and rusted. It looks like it's from the 1800s. Gross. This place was built in 1975. How do you even have pictures of creepy little kids sitting in the laps of people who look dead? Are they dead? Are those people dead? It was easy enough to find the previous owners who built the place. They're perfectly normal, in their 60s, retired. They never had any issues. In fact, they only sold this place because they started having issues with you. They didn't want to deal with it, so they moved to the next town over, and that's why the place was so cheap. You cost them around $300,000. What kind of a jerk does that? A jerk like you, dear ghost in my basement. The noises are one thing. I could shrug that off, but the slime on the steps, the walls, the floor, do you need to leave this everywhere? Ectoplasm, it's called, apparently. I just call it gross. That time your weird glowing red eyes appeared in the laundry chute? Yeah, that was scary, but really I just thought you were a raccoon, so I'm not really sure what the end game was there, dude. At the end of the day, you're only throwing around your own stuff. I don't care about the creepy pictures. I don't know those people. I don't care about the weird medical equipment. The slime doesn't even smell bad or anything. It's just a nuisance. I can't even hear you when I'm upstairs trying to sleep, which I do appreciate. So thank you. I love you. Thank you. It's just that I'd like to be able to watch my shows from the hours of 7 to 11 at night without hearing wind howling and footsteps running up and down the stairs to the basement, you know? Make all the noise you want when I'm at work or not here. I really don't care. Do your thing. I'm not here to infringe upon your rights as a dead person. That's not the tea, mama. You only seem to like the wide open dusty space at the bottom of the stairs. Not even the extra space near the boiler or whatever. So cool, man. Take the whole thing. Live your truth. Annoying ghost in my basement. But live it at any other time when I'm not trying to watch YouTube or Hell's Kitchen or Beforeigners or while I'm playing Overwatch. I just want to unwind a bit after work and dinner. You know what I mean? Thanks in advance. Sincerely, Grover Blake, new homeowner. Boom. You can find those stories in Tear Me Open, Fears Unwrapped, courtesy of Winding Road Stories.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I love the letter to the ghost in your basement.
Yeah. He's not very nice in that story. He's a bad boy. He's Chico Malo like me.
Well, we're having all sorts of shenanigans behind the scenes on Galactic Terrors tonight, which led to some technical glitches, so I apologize for those. And we're all good now, aren't we?
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah, so we have some questions from the audience, but before we jump in, I see Nicholas Dyack has actually joined us now, and I don't know, Nicholas, just very quickly, did you catch the opening of tonight's broadcast, or have you just joined us as we were getting into the readings? We'll give him a second to answer, but he has some good questions for you. So Nicholas, yeah, when you get a chance, let us know, and we're going to start with your question anyway. There's something sinister in the center field. Did you draw any influence from 90s kids baseball movies at all? Sandlot, Rookie of the Year, Angels in the Outfield, etc. And if so, which is your fave?
I really like I like Angels in the Outfield a lot. I think it's really sweet. And I think the guy from Home Alone is in that. Daniel Stern is in Angels in the Outfield. So I really like that one a lot. I mean, I was just talking about The Sandlot the other day, too. I do enjoy. I like all of these, to be honest with you. But Angels in the Outfield is always the one that I always think of.
Cool. All right. Thank you for the question, Nicholas. And Nick, I see you said that you joined us a little late, so I'm just going to give you a quick shout out and suggest when you get a chance, go back to the recording and take a look, because I was telling everybody about these awesome postcards that you have sent me, which I was so happy to receive, and giving everyone a little bit of a heads up about the HP Lovecast podcast. So thank you very much, Nicholas.
I have mine on my refrigerator.
Ooh, all right. All right. We also have a question for you from Teal James Glenn. How do you shift from intense adult horror to the YA stuff? You are good at both, but there has to be a way you adjust your fear level, or is there?
Yeah, there's a bigger difference going to middle grade from adult or YA, because middle grade, there's more rules than in YA. But I just think of what would scare me as an adult and bring that to the kids. Like, having to play, like, there's something sinister in Centerfield. Having to play a sport with one of my best friend's souls in the balance would be a terrifying thing, I think, for any of us. So, like, that's just kind of hit for that. Or something like in The Triangle, the idea of, there's nothing more cosmic to a teenager than going through puberty and changes and sort of becoming who they are, growing into adulthood and stuff. And that's like a very cosmic change that we undergo, all of us undergo. And it's very out there for a lot of us. So those two things just kind of lent themselves naturally to the book and the two books in general. But yeah, there's definitely a bigger difference going from adult / YA to middle grade, because middle grade has the rules of, like, no cursing, no sex, no violence, no drugs, or not really no violence, but no drugs, no sex, no cursing, stuff like that.
Interesting. So do you find yourself occasionally slipping and having to go back and edit out stuff that's not middle grade appropriate?
Yeah, there's my book Nocturnal Creatures was originally written like skewed towards adults, and then when we went back into it and redid it for a middle grade audience, which is how I wanted to do it originally anyway, it wasn't super hard to remove the cursing or soften some of the language, because I wanted to do it anyway. But it was definitely strange having to go back through and really pay attention to dialogue and, like, add more dialogue that was more not even appropriate, but more character driven appropriate. So that was a fun challenge, actually, to go back in and redo that.
Very cool. Now, this book that is out, Tear Me Open, Fears Unwrapped, this is your second or third collection?
This is my third collection.
Third,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I wondered a little bit about where you're coming from with the title. So I think it's a great title. It says a lot about the kind of horror that the reader can expect. But how did you land on that?
So it's the original. One of my previous collections was wrapped in plastic. So Tear Me Open, like you're opening the wrap and the wrapped object, and then Fears Unwrapped. So it kind of just lends itself naturally to that. But then I wanted to, because I was adding more stories to it. So there's like 3 or 4 more stories in there. So I wanted to really, like, the previous collection was more adult focused. This one has a couple stories that could be for younger readers, including the novella that's in there, Curse of the Cobman v. Sleepy Hollow Gang, Dawn of Cobbening. I don't know why I named it that, because I'm insane. Or The Cobbening, I think it's called. Because it's, like, really opening me up and spilling out a lot of, like, this is stuff for kids, this is stuff for adults. It's all just falling out. So Tear Me Open. And then when I saw that cover with the spiders and the eyes, and, like, it's so gross.
I love this. I love this art. Yeah, it's just, it hits so many creep factors.
Thank you. Yeah, I love it too. Santiago Caruso is a genius. He did one of Langan's covers. He did the Wide Carnivorous Sky. And that's the only thing I told Michael Dolan at Winding Road Stories. Can you get me somebody who did one of Langan's covers? And he did. So fantastic. I owe him a lot.
Well, we have another question for you from Jonathan Lees this time. If you could co-write a horror story with any of the Drag Race contestants, who would it be?
I think that might be my favorite question I've ever been asked. I would probably say I'd want somebody who I know is creative So I would have to go with probably Jinx Monsoon, the Queen of Queens herself. I think Jinx could author something really witchy and really spooky and really eerie, and I absolutely adore her. Getting to meet Jinx Monsoon would be like a dream come true.
I feel like this show is being heavily influenced by the fact that NICON was this past weekend.
I always want to go to NICON, but like I never remember when it is.
Okay.
I
had thought you were there, and I thought I pictured you and Jonathan having intense conversations about Drag Race at NICON.
Anytime, if anybody wants to talk Drag Race, jump into my DMs. I could talk about it all day and night.
So one other thing just to touch on with you, Robert, before we go to our next reader is congratulations on receiving your second Bram Stoker Award last month.
Thank you.
How do you feel about being a 2-time Bram Stoker Award recipient?
It's really crazy. We just figured out where we're going to put it in my house. We figured that out today, actually, literally right before I got on the call. And it's really strange to think about. I think about my speech, and I feel like sort of embarrassed that I was so emotional in front of so many people. But, you know, it's just what I felt. Knowing that my mom was there and my wife were both there to see it, like, meant the world to me. So I can't thank everybody enough for their support and kindness from the beginning. And it's just crazy. It's really crazy to think about. And I'm really honored, and it means the world to me. And I just want to keep giving back as much as I can in the way that people have given to me.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations again. And if you have second thoughts about where to put it, Nicholas is there with the suggestion. Give it to the ghost in the basement.
All right, fair enough. That's a good idea.
But Robert, thank you so much for sharing your reading with us tonight. Congratulations again. And we'll have you back on in a little bit to talk about what you have coming up next and all sorts of other cool stuff.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Our next reader tonight is John P. Collins. John has spent most of his life convinced that every abandoned building is haunted. Raised on a steady stream of trashy drive-in films, paperback nightmares, and other things frowned upon during the Satanic Panic, his fiction has been displayed in Even in the Grave, Soul Scream Anthologine, and Fear Forge, among other places. He's currently working on something twisted, and you can find him on Instagram at JP Collins. And John also has a new book out this month, a novella called The Leeds Point Horror. Welcome, John.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm going to read from the Leeds Point Horror. I'm going to read part of the opening chapter, and I'm going to jump a little ahead after that. The secret to any successful summoning ritual is desire, a deep-seated need for the combination of ingredients, prayers, and incantations to work and raise the intended entity. The location of the ritual can be of some importance. Try raising a fire imp in a Southeast Asian monsoon and see what happens. But most of the time, the locale can be overlooked if the conjurer's heart is true and their resolve is unwavering. Some magicians will argue over the language used in such rites. Others will want to offer their opinions about the components of the components. Is the head of a pig enough when the spell originally called for the sacrifice to come from a 3-day-old lamb? Does the value of gold diminish if the ore has been minted? That sort of thing. Different spirits and essences call for different things. Some appear after a simple prayer, while other astral creatures require weeks of preparation, with each detail perfect down to the last grain of salt and the perfect single drop of semen. Failure in any of those 1,000 varieties can be catastrophic. Don't believe it? Ask the travelers at that love pass about it. See what they tell you. Bringing up a demon from hell is one thing. Trying to rein one already loose in the world, that's another thing altogether. Sitting in the dark, the man who calls himself Aaron Transom readjusted his posture, shifting positions as he knelt on the jagged spikes of volcanic rock and ashwood timber. Sheets of black silk flowed down from the ceiling, overlapping and twisting together until he was closed off on all sides, the material passing in on him, keeping him in place like a straitjacket. His eyes adjusted to the dark, seeing the crisscrossing threads of the fine gossamer material with perfect clarity, watching the small waves run down the fabric like the tides of a dark ocean, knowing that predators lingered under the surface. The pearl-handled razor molded perfectly into the contours of his hand, fitting with the rough curves of his palm, becoming an extension of himself. There was no need to look down. He knew his torso as well as he knew his own face. It was, after all, his flesh. That had not been taken away from him yet. The fingertips on his right hand tracing the lines, knowing the geography better than any lover. Skimming over the field of goose flesh that trailed over his ribs, then flowed upwards, brushing over his nipples, feeling them grow stiff with the excitement of what was to follow. His fingers roamed as if searching for hidden triggers, stopping at the scars. The puckered, raised flesh of the sigil had gone smooth over the years, but he could remember that was not the case. When he sat in the same self-made temple so many years ago, terrified of the potential of failure, the razor had felt unbearably heavy as he brought it up to the crook of his neck. Sweat poured over him, making his hands slick. He could still feel the muscle memory of his shaking hand as he cut into himself, his only companion being his teeth grinding away as his will guided him forward. The flesh whispered a low hiss as the razor traced over the once unblemished flesh. The flash of white behind his eyes became all-encompassing as he turned his left hand, arcing the blade upwards, creating spirals that signified the east and west, raw helixes that wept red tears. Every slice opened the door beyond his normal sight. Faces drifted out of the dark rooms he had never dreamt existed. Eyeless phantoms stared at him, leaving his soul chilled. The mouthless creatures whispered hymns of damnation inside his brain pan. Formless entities caressed him, groping and molesting his spirit until it flaked away like rust. Each demon emerged, beguiling him, tempting his desire before taking place in their new homes within the folds of the black veil that surrounded him. So many years had passed since those days of darkness. He knew every inch of the lacework lines and arcane symbols, the sharp edges of the crosses, the tight loops that make up the spirals of the east and west that made up for the framework, while a snake eating his own tail made up the center. Each inch gave the sigil his power. Every slice matched his own incantation, only strengthened his power, fortified his control and his ownership over his own personal demon. A tiny flame settled between his knees, projecting crimson brilliance to chase away the dark back to the shadows. The fire grew, growing up his bare flesh until his thighs became engulfed. Instead of burning, reducing his skin and muscle to ash, the flames were of ice, freezing the tissue until his bones felt encased in a crippling frost. Tremors trapped up his spine as he felt freeze settle over his arms, aching his hands, making gripping the pearl-handled razor nearly impossible. Do you come willingly? A deep voice spoke in the dark. The bass of its voice rattled through the skull like a hollow steel drum being struck. Yes. Do you offer sacrifice? Yes, Master. A large figure stepped from the shadows, seeming to step out from the folds of silk. It towered over him, larger than the space should have allowed. A shadow within a starless night. Its enormous frame filled his core with what could once be thought as an unreachable fear. He knew better now how much of that dread was possible. Do you understand the price of failure? Yes, Master. A low chuckle filled his head, pounding within his skull, with the power of a violent ocean threatening to pulverize his brain until he was nothing but a puddle of wasted filth. Aaron looked down at his altar. The candles placed at the boy's eyes sealed the lid shut. Melted beeswax will do that. The red trail slid over the sockets and splattered onto his cheeks. His naked torso rose, then after a minute dropped down as the breath left his thin body. If not for the ragged, shuddered gasp of breath, he would have thought that the boy had expired. Arcane symbols and shapes of a dead language were painted across the body. The chicken blood already starting to gel in the chilled air. Will you take communion with me? Yes, my master, Aaron said, his throat hit in revulsion. Now we're moving forward to this in the story. The carnival's midway smelt of sawdust, popcorn, and money. Walking down the center aisle into the guts of the fair, you find yourself lost in the fog of lost nostalgia. Moments borrowed and shared by faceless ghosts, formless specters that have walked this same path, leaving behind impressions for people like you who filled in the same ash-filled clouds of smoke left behind by the explosion of fireworks. Those who felt the same greased air of butter and sugar particles that floated from the concession stands, coating the skin the same way the dust will after work in the fields on a hot afternoon. Walking past a row of colorful canvas tents, the entrance is closed off by imitation velvet curtains. Your imagination rises to mountainous peaks as what sights are forbidden to you. The world closed off to you because of your youth will sit back in your mind like repressed false childhood memories. The rapid-fire chatter of the carnage sales pitch floats over the chatter of the patrons walking down the midway. In the darkness just beyond the fairgrounds, the rumble of four-cylinder gas engines that power the tilt-a-whirl and the other mechanized rides growl like shackled beasts. The nauseous stink of the engine's exhaust is carried away by an early autumn breeze, leaving behind a sweet smell of cotton candy and the screams of excited children in its wake. And that's it.
Oh my goodness. I've heard you read from this before and I'm still creeped out. That's a that's a compliment, right?
I know this.
Yeah.
I know this.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations. And this novella is your first work with just your name on it, right?
Yeah, it's my first book. Yeah. It's
Very
so
exciting.
far the reception has been pretty good, from what I've been told.
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent. I did happen to attend the event you did at Tiny Raccoon out in Long Island, and you filled the place. You sold over 20 books while they were there. It was amazing. So, yeah, that was terrific. Well, congratulations.
Well,
And thank you for sharing some of your words with us.
Thank you.
I'd like to start. We have a good question just starting out from Teal, which is sort of what I was thinking. And Teal asks, how did you have the guts to start the book with such a kick-ass opening that promised so much and be confident you could top it, which you did? It really sets the scene is what he's saying. What gave you the focus to start with this image?
I like hair-raising openings in my books and movies. It's something that really grabs the reader or viewer. And to be honest, I didn't know how to start slowly. I tried a few times. I tried a few different angles, and it just wasn't clicking right away. I wanted to come out like a gunshot, and so I figured this might be the best way to do it because I knew I wanted a scene like this. I just didn't know if I should open with it, but it just felt once I did a couple different ways, the way it came out just felt better.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because if you're going to go there anyway, just start us there and then blow our mind from there. That's cool. Cool. I'm also intrigued. I see you post a lot and you talk a lot about movies and such. Now, there's the images in this opening scene was really pretty wonderful and creepy, but yet evocative of a lot of things. What kind of inspired that? Was it some movies that you've seen, some books you've read, or just the phantom of your mind?
I would say first movies especially when I was younger. I have a great love for the movie Curse of the Demon. Based on the old M.R. James story. And then it's not a graphic movie by any stretch of the means, but it could be. And this, like the story, it could be graphic if it really wanted to. But then I started really diving into Ramsey Campbell, writers like Ramsey, Mr. Langan as well, and I just I took a lot of inspiration to really celebrate. This is going to sound so lame, but celebrate the dark. It sounds so lame, but I like horror novels. I like horror novels and I like horror movies. I don't like it when they try to present themselves as something else. So I wanted very quickly. This is a horror novel, even though horror is in the title, but this is a horror novel, and this is what you're going to get. And if you decide to go past chapter 1, it's on you then. Yeah,
cool. And they clearly know what they're getting into. And yeah, I got a very visual sense of it, so I can see why movies would have tied in with that. Yeah. So, okay, I know you've heard me say this before, but Jim and I were thrilled to be able to edit one of your stories and include one of your stories in our anthology, Even in the Grave, which was ghost stories and such. And you told a wonderfully creepy kind of thing there. And what I've shared with you before is that one of my friends read that story, and it's the only one out of the book that gave him nightmares. So, yeah.
And that's the best compliment I've gotten in years. I love that. I love that quote, some sleepless nights. That's great.
Yeah. Have you gotten much feedback from folks on this one yet? Are you getting any nightmares yet?
Nightmares, no, but by and large, the people who've reached out, have enjoyed it, and people beyond being an acquaintance of mine. And so,
cool.
I was a little worried about, like, the only compliment I get was like from my aunt in Michigan, and like, okay, that's nice, but the fact that someone contacted me, hey, I bought your book and I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Yeah, I know it's not going to register for everybody, but the fact that it's registering for some people, I'm thrilled to death about it.
Yeah, and here's some feedback you just got from Valerie Williams, who says, "Love the sensory details. I could smell the carnival." Ooh.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's what I wanted. I've gotten to write in a writers group with Jim Chambers, and he was very instrumental in helping me work on atmosphere on a lot of things. So that
excellent.
I think that paid off with this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jim gives excellent advice and feedback. So that's cool. Now, okay. So I think the cover is just really wonderfully amazing. It's just so creepy because this is very simple and black and white, but you've got all sorts of imagery going on in that scene. But the Leeds Point horror, I am very fond of the Jersey Devil, which makes me think of the Leeds family and such. But how did you come up with the title for this?
The initial idea was a carnival had the Jersey Devil in captivity. That was the initial idea. This is the third version of that novella. Okay. And as much as I like the idea, it just never came. It just came off really cheesy, and I'm like, but I really carnivals have a special place in my heart. As a kid in the 70s and 80s. Carnivals were all over the place on Long Island in the summer, and the Jersey Devil was just one of those cool cryptids, but I just could never get away from it. It just sounded so. It just had an interesting point. Because I live on Long Island, so Long Island, the big thing is the Amityville horror, right? And Leeds Point was Mrs. Leeds had the Jersey Devil, but I'm like, well, I don't know if there's really Leeds, like a town that was mentioned in this story, because you never really hear the story. So I'm like, well, what if I set in someplace, and then I thought about Cape May, and thought about this one and that one and Montauk Point, and then all of a sudden just turned into Leeds Point horror. And I like to think I kept it a little ambiguous on what the the least point horror Jersey Devil could possibly be. But I love the imagery of it, and I just love the idea of it.
Okay, so then the readers can supply the parts that they want. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah. So, what are some of the other things that that you've been thinking in this story? Are you worried that you're going to get too much creepy stuff, or are you going full hog from here?
Oh, I'm going full bore. I'm aiming down the sights at everybody. The stuff I've been doing since I'm used to again showing it to people. Hey, what do you think of this? And they read it and like, oh, John, what are you doing? So I might revisit this world. This is a one-shot story as far as these characters go. I'm not doing anything with the characters in this, but I might revisit this little world again. That would be interesting. Right now, I'm just I'm working on some. I'm just like my mind is just like full into this one thing, which is I'll talk about it later, but it's very ambitious. It's ambitious for me. It's ambitious for me, not but
cool. Well, yeah, no, I want to hear about that when we all come back on the end. We can talk about what's coming up. So that'll be really cool. And this was kind of fun too because Nicholas Dyack has a perfect comment. Antlers are always creepy. Yeah,
they are. They are. They're just. I mean, and I love the cover art. Rebecca Cuthbert did it, and she created that, and I loved it so much I got it tattooed on me. So
yes.
I got it tattooed on me. There's no way of showing a tattoo right now, but
maybe that's just as well. We don't want to get too horror. Yeah.
But yeah, she did fantastic, and I have to be honest, Alien Buddha was fantastic too. He was,
they're doing great things for a new group. Yeah, that's true.
And they go all over the place. I mean, they did a poetry with Amy Geck, and I mean, it was just they're wonderful to work with. I had a great time working with them, and he didn't say no to me. He had one comment about something. I'm like, okay, I can live with that.
Yeah.
But other than that, they were great, and it's been a great experience. But upward and onward.
Oh, that's so terrific. Well, I am really thrilled that you came on and shared some of your words, and I hope more people can get grossed out and freaked out and get nightmares. I mean, enjoy your work. Yeah.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, John. It's always fun to talk with you. Yeah. So what I would love to do now is introduce our third reader, JOHN LANGAN, who is the author of 2 novels and 5 collections of stories. For his work, he received the Bram Stoker and This Is Horror Awards. He's one of the founders of the Shirley Jackson Awards, which just happened, and it remains on its board of advisors. He lives in New York's mid-Hudson Valley with his wife, younger son, and a hermit crab who is really growing quite large. You can hear more about JOHN LANGAN at his website, johnpaullangan.wordpress.com. Here's words from John.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming here tonight to this virtual space. I would like to read you an excerpt from the original piece in my forthcoming collection. I'll have a 6th collection out called Lost in the Dark and Other Excursions from Word Horde Press in a few weeks, August 5th. This original piece is a kind of a hybrid essay story that began as a contribution to Becky Spratford's nonfiction anthology, Why I Love Horror. And when I started writing this piece, which was only supposed to be 4,000 words long and was due, whenever it was, Paul Tremblay rather snarkily said to me, yeah, it's going to be about 3 times as long and 2 months overdue. He may have been right, damn him. So at a certain point, I decided that I should just put this aside and write the essay that actually Vicky ultimately accepted for the anthology. So what I wound up writing, though, the original response to the prompt became the original story in Lost in the Dark. So I'd like to read just the first 7,000 or 8,000 words of it. So this story is called, or this piece, whatever this thing is called Snake Bit, or Why I Continue to Love Horror. 1. Here's the thing. I've been answering questions about the beginnings of my relationship to the horror field for a little bit of time now, some in written interviews, some on convention panels, some on podcasts. I've referred to the experience of reading Stephen King's Christine during the fall of 1983 in my freshman year of high school. I've described the way the novel catalyzed me, discussed the way in which its portrait of adolescent existence felt true, even though I recognized many of its details as exaggerated. From there, I've moved forward in time to credit the importance of reading and rereading Peter Straub's Ghost Story and Shadowland, not to mention Ted Klein's Dark Gods, Clive Barker's short fiction, and the year's best horror stories series Carl Edward Wagner edited for Daw Books. I've also gone backwards from that high school moment, to writing and reading a horror story to my 6th grade English class, to writing and illustrating a King Kong versus Godzilla story in my 1st grade English notebook. I have referred to watching an adaptation of Frankenstein I've never been able to identify with my father at an age I'm unsure of. I've discussed the 2 heart attacks that almost killed my dad in the fall of 1982, and the 2 months in the ICU at what my family did not realize was the actual end of his life a decade and change later. I've considered the effect of being raised Roman Catholic by devout parents on my youthful imagination. I've revisited the oldest memories I have, which are of surgery for a tiny piece of metal that had infiltrated the cornea of my right eye when I was 2.5. Given such an accumulation of anecdotes, my becoming interested in horror narratives is perhaps not that surprising. Indeed, you might call it overdetermined. But starting a relationship is not the same as continuing one, is it? To ask why I love horror is, as I see it, to ask what it is about the field that has allowed and even encouraged me to sustain a creative engagement with it in a professional sense for the last 24 years. As I'm writing this, it's the equivalent to asking how you've remained in love after many years with your partner. Answering this question requires a different type of explanation. Rather than another trip through my interior archives, we need to go a little further along to the workshop that adjoins the archives. As a shorthand to explain the way my creativity functions, I've recently employed the following example. Give me a story about a college professor having a midlife crisis. I'm not that interested. Add a Lamia to the mix, however, and I'm on board. So let's take a look at this shorthand in action. 2. To begin with, here's a character. We'll call him Tom Alero, using a name that's been rattling around inside my brain for at least the last decade, when he was supposed to be the protagonist of a story called 5 Million Tentacles, 5 Million Bullets. This Tom, as perhaps that other earlier Tom, is an assistant professor of English at a college in New York State, about an hour and a half north of New York City along the Hudson River. As a nod to the novels of the terrific Carol Goodman, I've used the name Penrose College in previous stories. I believe this is where Tom teaches. Penrose is also a leitmotif in James Joyce's Ulysses. He's small, 5'8", trim, 140 pounds man, who maintains his health with an early morning run around the college's extensive network of footpaths, which he follows with a shower at the campus health center. He likes to say he hates running, but loves having run, hates the way his legs burn and his chest heaves as his sneakers pound the ribbon of pavement that takes him around the school's mix of late Victorian and modernist buildings, but loves the feeling that settles in him not long after he's left the health center and is walking towards his office in Irving Hall, a sensation of having been cleansed, all the detritus of the previous day left in the carefully mowed grass lining the paths, washed down the shower drain. Tom is in his early 40s, 43 to be precise, an age which bothers him more than he knows it should. Yes, his thick black hair has receded, but only enough for someone staring obsessively at his hairline in the mirror to notice, and there isn't enough gray in it for anyone to notice, except for the obsessive mirror starer. The dark circles under his brown eyes are no worse than they've ever been, and the trio of lines cut into his forehead don't mark him as almost 50, just older. On the mental checklist he doesn't like to admit keeping, but to which he has been returning with increasing frequency the past couple of years, Tom can mark as completed most of the items there. PhD, check, and from Columbia at that. Tenured position at a more than respectable school, check. Publication of books, 2 by prestigious academic presses, and articles, 7 in peer-reviewed journals, check and check. One of the books, a meticulous study of the English Romantic poet John Keats's long poem Lamia, was a finalist for a minor award. The list goes on, but you get the point. Career-wise, Tom is doing about as well as the younger self who chose to pursue a doctorate as opposed to opting for a career as a high school teacher could have hoped. Every year he attends the MLA convention in whatever city is hosting it, and the panels in which he participates are among the best attended at the sprawling event. He is on the editorial board of 2 scholarly journals. His photograph and professional biography feature prominently on the Penrose website. It's always possible to wish for more from one's career, an endowed chair at a larger institution, a Brown or Stanford, but such aspirations are not the source of Tom's unease. Well, perhaps it's his personal life, right? Or his lack thereof. He's one of those people whose overachievements in one part of their life have come at the expense of deficits in the rest of it. Maybe he lives in an underfurnished apartment whose sparse, almost monkish decor speaks to an underdeveloped aspect of his existence. But no. At 5:11 this particular afternoon, let's follow him as he leaves campus in his green Subaru Outback, vehicle of choice he likes to joke for liberal professors condemned to contend with the region's unpredictable, sometimes ferocious winters. He drives 20 minutes south and a little east from Penrose to a development of split-level houses through whose looping streets he steers until he arrives at one set a small, steep rise. He turns into its short driveway beside his wife's car, another Outback Brown, which he is surprised to see already there, and shifts into park. Possibly he remains in the driver's seat after he has switched off the engine, his eyes seemingly staring at the garage door in front of him, closed, although if it were open, there would be no room for the car, as the space is occupied with all manner of boxes and clutter, most of it connected to the 2 children who throw open the front door to the house with a crash and race down the concrete steps to the driveway. Bess, the younger, holding onto the metal railing with her left hand as she descends each step, while Barney, the older, ignores such precaution and jumps 2 and 3 steps at a time, almost overbalancing himself when he attempts 4, only to catch himself at the last moment, his round 7-year-old's face lighting with pleasure at his success. Tom was on his way out of the car as Barney braved 4 steps, his heart already in his throat in anticipation of scraped and bleeding skin, possible broken bones, streaming tears, and sobbing. Barney's triumph renders his father's surge of panic unnecessary, though the emotion fails to subside right away, threatening to erupt from Tom in a torrent of reproach directed at his grinning son. "What have I told you about jumping on the steps?" he can hear himself saying, his voice taut and nasal from exasperation. No matter that Barney will apologize immediately, is on his way to doing so before Tom has said anything, as the sight of his father's expression has reminded him of the no jumping on the front steps rule. Shame clouds Tom's fear like ink dropped in boiling water. Lightheaded from the tumult of emotion, he forces a smile at Barney and says, "Hey, buddy," in a tone he hopes betrays nothing other than happiness at seeing him. Barney responds with a "Hey, Dad" of his own, a myriad of feelings flitting across his face like startled sparrows. The tail end of fear at having realized his mistake, suspicion at the mildness of his dad's greeting, relief at thinking Tom didn't notice his rule breaking. Tom exchanges a high five with his son, then steps past him to catch Bess in a hug that lifts her off the bottom step and into the air, shrieking laughter. 5, she responds to Tom's exaggerated embraces with an unfettered delight from which her older brother has withdrawn since entering 2nd grade. Oh, Barney still appreciates a good hug, but lately he has favored more restrained displays of affection. Of course he does, Delilah, Tom's wife says. He's growing up, maturing, which Tom concedes their oldest is. It's just that the process seems to be happening in fits and starts, which Tom wishes he found less confusing and occasionally exasperating than he does. I'm going to pause there for the moment. So thank you very much, everybody.
Cool.
Thank you, John.
Interesting spot.
I suspect the question burning on everyone's mind, John, is why 5 million tentacles?
Do you know it was actually a title that was given to me by a friend. My late mentor, a wonderful man named Bob Waugh, Robert Waugh. He wrote a bunch of brilliant critical studies of H.P. Lovecraft. He and I used to go to see these movies together. We called them the Bob and John movies, and they were things like the original Del Toro Hellboy, right? That was the pitch perfect, Bob and John movie. And Bob's wife Kappa would occasionally say, "Oh, great, yes, another Bob and John movie. 5 million bullets, 5 million tentacles, or 5 million tentacles, 5." And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to write a story with that title, right? That's like, And I thought it would be, I don't know what I thought it would be, but anyway, I thought I would just, drop that title in there. But I may yet write the story. Who knows?
That's awesome. Well, this is an amazing piece, and I think you read a portion of this at StokerCon, if I'm not mistaken, or am I mixing
actually
up?
at StokerCon? I actually read the beginning of the actual essay that I wrote.
Yes.
There's a teeny bit of overlap at the beginning, but not much.
But so this is the essay you just read from now that did not go into Becky's
right
book.
Exactly. This didn't make it because I as I said in as you just heard, I feel like when you say to people, Jim, why do you like this weird stuff, right? There's like there's always this autobiographical question that lurks behind it, right? Like, what damaged you when you were a child? Show me where horror hurt you on the doll, And I, we all have those experiences, both in terms of the media we watched and our experiences as human beings. But I just thought it was much more interesting to talk about, why are you still in love with horror? And that, so this story is a kind of an attempt to answer that by showing you what horror lets me do as a writer.
Okay. Now you have a new collection coming August 5th, Lost in the Dark and Other Excursions.
I do, with a wonderful cover by Matthew Jaffe.
Ooh, I think we have that. I'll dig that up while we chat. But you said this will be your 6th collection?
Yeah, my 6th collection, which is I have I have enough stories still for at least another 2, maybe 3. And when I started writing, I've said this so many times, that when I started writing, I would see people getting invited to anthologies, right? Or submitting to anthologies, appearing in anthologies. And I think, man, when I get old enough, I'm going to, one day, I'm going to be in all the anthologies, And so when somebody invites me to an anthology, I never want to say no. A lot of times I don't make the deadline or what have you, but I love the thought of being invited to things. And there are times that people will say to me, "Oh, we didn't invite you to this because we thought, we're not paying enough money, or you wouldn't have time for us, or whatever." And I guess I feel like, look, ask. It's possible. I might say, "Look, I'm overcommitted. I can't do something," but that's pretty much the only reason. Or that's pretty much the only reason, I suppose, that I would turn an invitation down. So, and that's part of, for me, that's part of how that in itself is part of why horror continues to work for me, is because I can do that. After all these years, I've written all these stories, all these prompts. The genre, it's sort of like the further into it I go, or the farther into it I go, the bigger it gets.
And I think that's really clever too, because if somebody doesn't ask, then you're not going to just randomly submit it when you're not invited to something that's invitation only. So yeah, nothing ventured, nothing gained on the part of the anthologist. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the worst somebody is going to do is say no. It's in a way, it's like what you tell a beginning writer, right? When you say, look, don't reject yourself. Like, don't self-reject. Like send it, submit to the open call and see what happens. Submit to the magazine or the website or whatever and see what happens. So it's just another version of that.
And okay.
Oh, because I love the way you described getting deeper into horror. It gets bigger. It's like the prototypical haunted house story. You go in and find unknown depths in this little house, and
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but
And
sorry,
there's probably two thoughts, but there's probably still something about us who everybody could possibly have had these interesting experiences with things that are horrific. And not every single person is going to gravitate towards the genre and writing it and participating in it. So, it's not only that, my parents woke me up to see Little Shop of Horrors on the midnight showing when I was 5. That's not what did it, but something in me said, oh, this is cool. I want that.
Right. I think that it's one of those things where it's there's no one single explanation, that it's a sort of, I think that there may be a moment where you realize, oh man, this works for me, or I can do something with this, as a writer. But I also think that by the time you reach that moment, there's probably a million little things that have come together, that have coalesced to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And just to jump in, we do have the cover to show off.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
And what's the name of the artist again, John?
Is Matthew Jaffe, Jaffe. Matthew had done a little while ago the cover for Laird Barron's collection, Occultation, and it's one of my favorite covers. And when I started working with Ross at Word Horde, he was like, oh, who do you want to use? And so we wound up going with Jaffe, because I kind of wanted somebody whose style was reminiscent of the style of the cover of The Fisherman, which is, Hudson River School painter. And I thought that Matt had the closest approximation of that. But I've lucked out because, as Rob said, the great Santiago Caruso did the cover for actually my second and my third collection, The White Carnivorous Sky and Saphira and Other Betrayals. There are like a ton of fantastic visual artists out there right now, and I've been lucky to work with 2 of them.
Well, it's a spectacular cover, so congrats on getting such a nice piece of art.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. How do you go about choosing which stories you're going to put in which collection? I mean, 6 collections. Oh my gosh. You've got so many stories, but how do you group them? What works together in your mind?
Well, I have friends like Laird, who are very, very meticulous about the stories they pick, and they pick out of the stories they've published, and then the order in which they arrange them. And right. I'm much more interested in kind of synchronicity. So what I tend to do is I tend to say, okay, these were the stories that I was writing from, 2017 to, in theory, 2025, I guess, with the original. But these go from about 2017 to 2021, somewhere around there. Okay. I'm going to pick this selection, and then I'm going to put them together. And sometimes as I'm putting them into manuscript format, I think, you know what, this one story at the end doesn't belong. That'll go in the next collection. So they have this sort of underlying feel. And then for me, putting them together and writing the story notes for them becomes this kind of exploration for me of like, what's going on? So my third collection, Saphira and Other Betrayals, I had this group of stories that went together, in part because they were all about different forms of betrayal. And I was like, oh man, and I had not been aware that I was doing that when I was writing those stories. And yet, when it came time to put the book together, I was like, oh man, this was something I was really obsessing over and really, just coming back to. So that kind of like allowing that kind of synchronicity to happen is really, really important to me. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people are like, no, I want to have something that is much more kind of crafted and much more organized. I'm much more of a believer, I guess, in kind of chance and happy accidents, so that you know how it is. Someone comes up to you and says, oh, you wrote this story and I saw this, that, and the next thing going on in the story, and you're thinking to yourself, well, I didn't plan that, but at the same time it's there. You recognize that it's there. So I'd like to take advantage of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, are your collections a mix of new stories that were previously unpublished and reprint stories, or all new, or
They're by and large, they're all they've all been printed, published. They've all been published previously. There'll be a new story. I try to make the new story reasonably substantial. I have this illusion that there's this John Langan completist out there, and I don't want to disappoint that person. But I will include things. There's like a teeny story that I wrote at the very end of the collection for my son's School of Rock that he was going to, and they were having a Halloween zombie walk, and they wanted like a sort of story to kick that off. So I wrote this little thing for them. So I suppose that's an original as well, but I think it's not exactly original. It's a different kind of thing. But yeah, I try to. At this point, I'm just collecting things that that have been published previously, and quite often that just people haven't seen yet. So this is their chance to look at them.
That's excellent. Well, we do have one question from the audience before we bring our other readers back on, and I will warn you, this is from Robert OTTONE.
Oh my God! Okay.
That guy, so cool.
Question: is the obsessive mirror starer secretly Michael Sisko?
Oh, it's no secret. It's no secret at all. That's Sisko. No, I wanted a sort of like I don't know, sort of young, middle-aged kind of guy who's just worrying about things that that in a way, it's interesting. Like when I hit my 40s, I was surprised to find myself worrying about things that probably my dad worried about in his 40s. And I, even though the larger culture was saying, no, man, you're still young when you're in your 40s, like that's, we're not like our parents or our grandparents or whatever. But I think that there are certain things that you can't help thinking about, let's say, when you reach a certain point on the birthday clock, and you're just like, oh man, well, I'm, when I hit 40, it was like, well, I'm kind of balanced, like I've got about as much time behind me as I hope I have ahead of me. And then as you start to advance, you hit 50, and then you're like, that's probably not true anymore, and so yeah, you start to think about the doomsday clock, right? You start to think about those kinds of things. So I wanted a guy who would be able to be in that position, because of the other thing is that I had promised somebody, and I'm blanking on who it is right now, years ago, to write a story with a lamia in it. I'm always down to write a monster story. So anybody, I won't necessarily get to it right away, right? But anybody who wants to, whatever, Facebook message me and say, why don't you write a story about blah, 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 something, a monster I've never heard of or thought of, I'll get to it, because that to me is a really I love monsters, and that's a fascinating challenge. So I wanted to do something with the lamia. And when I was in college, I had written this long paper on Keats's poem, Lamia. So that was the Lamia I was going to use. I didn't just want to do like some descriptions of Lamia, have them as like vampires basically. And I was like, nope, not interested in that. Keats's Lamia is like this sort of serpent woman. And that was very much what I wanted. So that then demanded certain things. And the fact that I'd studied Keats's Lamia probably also helped to make the protagonist a college professor too, because that was where I had first encountered it.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's amazing as the sort of winding paths ideas take as they kind of come to life.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely, absolutely.
And pick up from things from our own lives, as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, I think it's all at this past weekend at Nikon. I was on
Yeah.
a panel where we talked about autobiography and the uses of autobiography, and I think I may have mentioned this in my last collection, which a lot of the stories there are inspired very directly by autobiography, and what I was thinking about was something Stephen Graham Jones had said to Paul Tremblay, that he, when he would send Paul a book or signed book, it would say dear Paul, this is it's all true, or this is all autobiographical, and it would be about some kind of serial killer or whatever. And although these will be Exhibit A in the government's case against Stephen, and so Paul interviewed him at ReaderCon one year and said, well, what did you mean by that? And Stephen said, well, when I get to a part in my work and I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen, I just like borrow something, I just import something from my life, from my experience into it. And so I do things maybe in a slightly different way from Stephen, but I get what he's talking about. It's not so much write what you know, but it's invent from what you know. That's the, Flannery O'Connor, right, used to say, by the time you're 5 years old, you've been through all the kind of, the emotional spectrum, and who loves you more than a 5-year-old, and who is depressed and upset more than a 5-year-old, and so on. Who is sadder than a 5-year-old, right? Who is sillier than a so the point is that, you have all this stuff there, and then you invent out from there. That's the soil, and you see what you can grow in that soil.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, they feel the full range. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So I think we're going to have Robert and John come back on with us for a little bit more talk.
Mm-hmm.
And John, thank you so much for sharing your piece with us. That was really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Fun to dive into the horror. Yeah.
And before we start in the conversation, I just want to make an observation. John Langan, 6 story collections. Robert OTTONE, 3. Who's wearing the crown?
Ah!
I think you need to hand that off to John at some. Yeah.
No. He is Chico Malo. He is.
That's great.
He is. I don't even. I would not dare. I would not dare, because when you come for the king, you best not miss. And I don't want them coming for me. So I would rather have them coming for Rob.
Jim,
all
I
those
just want to say,
young, hungry horror writers will just be
yeah.
like, where is he?
Yeah. We missed a perfect visual opportunity here for those who are watching as well as just listening, because Rob OTTONE handed the crown and put it off to the side right next to where John Collins. And if somebody had just handed one to John and put it on his head, oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
Right. And then John could be like, I'm the king now.
Yeah.
I'm the captain.
The legend of Chico Malo moves on.
Yeah. I'm a legend in my own mind. So yeah, it's all good. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight and sharing your work with us. Congratulations on the new books coming out this summer. It's fantastic. So if any of our listeners have not yet picked up these books or pre-ordered these books, and you're still looking for that summer read that's going to give you some chills, you've now got the perfect books to grab.
Yes, indeed. And because we all need more books. I in my house, I use them to line the rooms instead of aluminum foil, and it keeps the rays out. So it's a wonderful thing. Need more books always.
So John, this is where the point where we come to, we're always putting people on the spot. Hey, you've just published a brand new book. What's coming up next?
Which one? Now, which John? We have two. We have John Collins.
Going to John Collins.
Okay, start with Mr. Collins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm putting together a collection, and at the same time, I'm writing what I keep hemming and hawing on what to call it, but it's going to be a short novel, which is basically I described it this way the other night, and Jim just like looked at me like shocked, like what? It's The Thing meets the fun parts of Deliverance, and
Oh, I think my
I don't know
my
how else to
response was
describe
there
it.
were fun parts of Deliverance.
Fun for who,
Depends on your frame of
Collins?
mind.
Fun for who?
Well, hopefully for the reader. But that's pretty much what I'm working on right now. So
Cool.
Awesome.
it's moving along slowly but surely.
Yes, that sounds wonderfully warped. So I'm looking forward to that.
You expect any less? Come on.
No, there's a reason we invite you all on our shows. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Right.
What about you, Rob? What do you have coming? I mean, yes, this is just coming out. Are there things in the pipeline? Things you're thinking of?
I have the third part of my young adult trilogy coming in the fall. The first one I won the Stoker for, and this third one is closing it out. So I'm very excited for that to come from Undertaker Books. And then I have a short story coming out in the Poison Soup anthology from Bridget's Gate, edited by Grace Reynolds and Wendy Dalrymple. I did a riff on the Universal Monsters and wrote a story that's actually based on a traumatic thing that happened to me when I was a little kid, when I was like 4 or 5. And I'm currently working on a nonfiction book right now that's really kicking my butt.
Intriguing. You're shifting. That's a lot of different facets that you're looking at. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he's wearing the crown, Jim.
We do. It's quite possible. Yes, Your Majesty. King Chico Malo. But we do have some audience suggestions about the fun parts of Deliverance. That Thing has a pretty smile. And this one I'm a little concerned about from Children of Fun. Squeal like a cryptid, boy.
Oh my.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, John Langan, I guess technically your next thing coming out is the new collection on August 5th.
Yes,
Lost in the
indeed.
Dark. And is there anything we can look forward to beyond that?
Well, as I said, I'll have the essay I actually wrote for Becky Spratford's Why I Love Horror. I, after making him suffer and wait an excruciating amount of time, I have a story coming out in Tom Deddy's next, the Rack Volume 2, I guess, that series. And I tried to write a serial killer story for that, a kind of a slasher story for that. It didn't work. And then I have a few other things that I'll be working on. I'm trying to finish 2 novels by the end of the year. This year, not 2027 or 2028. So we'll see how that goes.
I love that this year is 2026. Yes.
Oh, shoot. It's 2020. No. Oh, this doesn't bode well.
John, we all know this is the day after NeCon. I was surprised to find it was Monday. So, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was myself. I actually, for a moment, was like, it's Tuesday, right? And then I was like, oh, no, I guess it isn't. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, just before we start to close up, I'm going to share. We didn't share John Collins's book cover, so I'm going to pop that up here. The Leeds Point Horror.
Yeah.
Everybody buy it. Buy it.
Fantastic cover. And I'm going to show everyone else's again. So Tear Me Open, Fears Unwrapped, which is just really creepy.
Because
spiders and eyeballs. There you go. Spiders and eyeballs.
It says it all.
It reminds me a little bit of the old, mass market horror anthologies from the 60s and 70s that would have these really weird, illustrated, gruesome covers with spiders and eyeballs and things. And of course,
right.
Lost in the Dark and other excursions. So
Yes.
lots of great reading for you out there. I do think, does anybody remember the old Groucho Marx show and there was the secret word?
Yep.
If you said the secret word.
Then
I remember.
No, am I the only one that remembers?
Oh, I see. Well,
I remember.
we
Yep.
I was
couldn't
just going
get
to say, we
anybody to
managed to get through this whole broadcast without saying the secret
the
word.
secret word. The secret word.
That-
You
Ladies
bet
and
your life.
gentlemen of the
Chris.
audience, suffice it to say, I will not say the secret word, but I will
Thank
reveal that while at Nikon this weekend, during a conversation with some horror writers who will remain nameless, I pointed out that I had driven through a town named Keene, Keene, New Hampshire. And they said, "Oh my God, Brian Keene, he moved from being a bookstore. Now he's a town. What comes next?" This got us to talking about different town names. And
No, you don't.
One of my co-workers or co-writers or whatever mentioned the name of a town, whose name made people laugh. And
we can
I
tell
guess
them
you
where
would
it's located. Which state is it located in?
you would pronounce it Myannis, I guess, but that's not necessarily how it's spelled. Suffice it to say, like a bunch of 12-year-old boys, we talked about all the things that could be going on in Myannis. So,
And I just want to say every technical glitch we experienced tonight is directly due to the conversation about that town preceding our.
It's all because of John Langan's Maya. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Uh-oh, Angela Rico Smith.
I
Hold
like
on.
that everybody is like Googling and trying to figure it out. Yeah. It's, Intercourse, Pennsylvania. No, that was not it. That was not the name of it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well,
It's always great to have folks on and uplift our conversation. Yes, indeed. True.
This is how we all go viral. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is why you don't do roasts on social media anymore. Yeah. Jim, what do you have coming up, sir? Anything fun?
I have a lot of irons in the fire.
Yes, you do. Yes,
Yeah,
you do.
so
I'm sure.
nothing that's quite ready to be spoken of. It's all currently in the unspeakable stage.
Yes. And I have the same thing, a couple things I can't mention yet. I got invited into two things this weekend, which was really kind of fun. And can I just share some exciting things over right there? There's this little house on my shelf because I was honored very much to receive a Stoker Award for Discontinue If Death Ensues as well. And then the funny story, I got an email from my friend John Hartness at Falstaff Books and saying, "Carol, congratulations on your Stoker Award and your World Fantasy nomination." And I said, "Oh, no. I did receive a Stoker Award. It was wonderful, but not the World Fantasy. That's a Rising Award that I have for the poem." And there he's like, no. And he sent me the email. And it's now nominated for a World Fantasy Award. And I didn't even know. He found out before I did because he was one of the publishers and things. So,
Congratulations. That is awesome.
Congratulations.
you can imagine the words that I used in reply when yes. So
I'm thinking that crown needs to travel towards.
I think we just got to pass it around in a circle. We'll do it like the Brady Bunch, pass it around. Yeah. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
But we have some fun things coming up as well that have to do something with this really cool show called Galactic Terrors. I've heard of that.
Yes.
We've got a show coming up on Thursday, August 14th. Leanna Renee Heber, Lara Faye Kitty, and Kate Mariama. So that's really wonderful.
That's a good group. Yeah.
Looking forward to having them on. And it's actually Lara Frater. Internally we call her Faye Kitty, but yes. So my bad. So that's very cool. And then the following month, we know at least 2 out of our 3 readers. We've got James Ryan and Nick Mamadis coming on. And I know I'm saying it wrong, but with a name like Gyzander, I get my name said wrong all the time. So there we go. Yeah.
Can relate.
Yes.
Yeah. And there's one more fun thing that involves one of our HWA New York authors. The Fantastic Fiction Reading Series in New York City at the KGB Bar features Cassandra Caw and our New York chapter member, Deborah Avery, on Wednesday, August 13th. So those in the New York City area, take a peek for that and come join us and all. And the other thing, too, like we mentioned, our newsletter up at the very tippy top. If you want to get more details about what's coming on Galactic Terrors with the names and more information about the authors, please sign up for our newsletter. We do not spam you because we don't believe in spam. Unless you're making a fried spam sandwich, which my mother did because she's Southern. Yeah.
It sounds delicious.
It's awesome. It's
I've
awesome.
never had spam in my life.
Yes.
What?
That's
What?
With a crown
You
like
were
this, you
truly-
eating spam?
You were no Chico Malo. You are no Chico Malo, my friend.
Rob, I just want to tell you, spam is the same color as your crown. So there you go.
That sounds fabulous, man.
I'm just going to share what Jonathan Lee said. Get on it, Rob.
I'll try it. I'll try it.
Yeah.
Uh,
So fun. Fun.
Thank you guys for hosting this wonderful reading, and I loved it. It was fabulous listening to the two Johns.
Yes. Yeah, the John boys. Yeah. Yeah. No,
Wasn't
and
that exactly
I'm always thrilled to chat with the authors after we get to hear their words. It's not just like listening to an audiobook, because then we get to talk to you about it as well. And thank you for sharing your thoughts and your innermost secrets and all your secluded passwords and your social security numbers with us. And, you know, that was really, really thoughtful. Thank you.
That would be a
You'll
crazy
always tell them.
password. New password idea. Very good. No one will ever think of that one.
Right? They all have to have spam in them. Yeah.
Ooh.
oh,
All right.
it's getting a little salty.
Well, yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for continuing to do this. You know, for doing this every month. It's a really great service that you guys provide, and you should be recognized for it. So thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. And it's fun to have people from all around come and join us from New York and reach out to everybody all around.
Yeah, we have a blast, and especially enjoy the conversation pieces of this and just chatting and talking about writing with you all.
Yeah. So thanks so much.
All right. Well, thanks to our audience, too, for tuning in tonight.
Mhm.
We hope you'll be back here in August and join us for the next reading and future Galactic Terrors transmissions. With that, I think we'll say good night and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.